So here's my question for you guys. Have you evolved as an audiophile, as a human being? From where you started, let's just stick to being an audiophile, from where you started, whether it was a few years ago or a few decades ago, what are the changes that you've gone through, right? How did you get here, basically, is the question. You know, if you start young, as I did, right, you're probably into rock or dance music or something, and you want to play it loud, you want to crank it, you want to have a party. Sure, that's a great way to start, actually, because it is all about feeling that excitement in the music. When I started out, many, many decades ago, for me, the thing that really hooked me were phono cartridges, moving magnet phono cartridges, because those were the cheapest part of the system, but they made a huge difference in the sound of records, right? So I would go from Stanton cartridges to Empire cartridges to Pickering cartridges to Grado cartridges to Shure cartridges, microacoustic cartridges. They sounded all really different. So I would play my Led Zeppelin records, my Doors records, my Beatles records, and I would change the cartridge, and it'd sound completely different. Well, not completely, but they sounded really, really different, right? And then you get into that thing, well, what's the right one? What's the best one? Which is the one that sounds like the master tape? We never know. Actually, that's the best answer. But the thing is, that excitement, that initial excitement of changing the sound, the speakers were the same, the amplifier was the same, the turntable was the same, the cartridge, which at that point was the cheapest part of the system, change that, bam, everything changed. And that was so exciting to me because I was hearing, let's say, different aspects of these recordings that even at that point I knew really, really well. And that was powerful stuff because I wanted to get more and more out of the groove. I wanted to hear more of that music. And that was sort of the way in, you know. And yes, and then I changed speakers and I changed amplifiers and it sounded different again and again. And I'd hear my friends' JBLs. I had this friend of mine who had JBL 4311s, L100s, and that just blew my mind. But that was so far out of my price range at that point. So, and I had this other friend, he had acoustic research speakers, the wedge-shaped ones, and they were really different, more refined sounding, although I don't think I was into refinement in those days, but they sounded more whole than certainly what I had. And every step of the way, that was part of my education. That was the, you know, like the building blocks of my evolution and journey as an audiophile. So maybe journey, I've used that before, maybe evolution, journey is sort of the same thing. But this time it's really about you. So I know people, and I've done it myself, but that reach a point in their journey, in their evolution, and they burn out. They just say, enough. I don't want to do this anymore. Stop. I just want to listen to music. I don't want to think about all that crap. And either they do something rash and just totally dump their system, or they go cold turkey. Like I got this friend who did that, but he didn't sell it. He just listened on earbuds or something. He did that for 10 years. And then eventually he came back. Some people go away and really stay away for a long time, and they're done. They're just totally done. But I see in the comments from you all that some of you burned out long ago and stumbled upon the Audiophiliac Daily Show, and now you're back in. You say, yeah, you know, that was pretty good. And then you buy a system, you put together a system, and you remember why it was such an important part of your life. And sometimes this is like 20, 30 years later, and you're back in. And you're very, very happy about it. That's the other thing that I see from these comments, that these guys, it's mostly guys, remember this. And they're like, oh man, I forgot how exciting this was, how satisfying it is to hear music that you love sound really, really good. Some of them, you know, bailed on it because they didn't want to have LPs anymore. They said, enough of the LPs. They just dumped their entire LP collection and went digital and are now coming back to vinyl. That's another thing I see over and over again, right? That people got out of vinyl in the 80s or early 90s said, enough of that, back in vinyl. Now they're back playing records and enjoying it more than ever. So part of their evolution, their growth, their journey as audiophiles. So it comes in different forms. Of course, some people, of course, ditched their vinyl and stayed happily away from analog for the rest of their lives. That's probably even most people. I would admit that, sure. And of course, some people who stayed hardcore analog forever and ever and ever, and are just now dipping their toes into, they even bypassed CDs. They never had CDs. They just stuck with vinyl, and are now getting into streaming and hearing, new music to them through streaming. Again, this is part of that journey, that evolution. They're finding new stuff. Maybe even new stuff by their artists who are long dead, and just hearing things they just never heard before, because it's so easy to find stuff by looking for it on Qobuz or Tidal or Spotify or something, right? We're streaming on radio stations. My favorite, FIP in France. Love it. Or FIP, as they say. So again, that's my journey, actually, is getting to hear so much new music from that radio station, FIP and WFMU and BGO. It's really fun. And then I hear something on these radio stations that I'm streaming, I Shazam it and say, oh, that's fantastic. I want to put that in my queue or something, and sometimes even buy it, right? So that's my evolution. My journey is continuing, basically, to the present, right? Even the audiophiliac, after all these decades, I am still on that journey and on that quest, because it is about the journey more than getting there, right? For me, at least. I just want to keep hearing new things in music and certainly in audio. And that's what keeps me, let's just say, energized. But you guys, I want to hear from you all about your evolution, your journey, and those side detours into analog or digital or tubes. Sometimes it's tubes, right? Tubes are so different. I like tubes that sound different than solid state. Tubes that sound kind of like solid state, I'm not that, who cares, right? But tubes that have that tube magic, that kind of bigger, more dimensional quality, that's really powerful stuff. So if you've been hardcore solid state for most of your life and now getting into tubes, or you did the tube thing and you're like, enough with tubes, I'm going solid state, it's just easier and cooler, or maybe even Class D. Who knows? Everybody's got their own taste. Maybe you said, oh, these Class A amplifiers, enough of that, I'm going Class D, and I don't want to look back. I want to hear from you. I definitely want to hear from you all in the comments. The journey. So whether you're in your teens or 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s, you may be in different stages of the audiophile life, right? And that, it may be a decade by decade thing, right? Again, let's talk about it. My name is Steve Guttenberg. This continues to be the Audiophiliac Daily Show. If you like what I do, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you already have, fantastic. I'm so glad you're here. You could also check out the Patreon at patreon.com/audiophiliac, and there's a link to that below. Playlists for all about, all that stuff by now. Yeah. I think my work here is at last complete. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.